Welcome to Special Educators Resource Room podcast. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. And if you're new here, this is the show where we talk about how to make special education work for real classrooms, real teachers, and real life. No fluff, just practical, doable support. We've had some spicy episodes recently. We talked about how to break down planning. I assigned a different task for each day of the week. We also talked about how it can feel when it seems like you're the only one supporting inclusion. Today, we're going to take those two topics and put them together. We're going to talk about planning a smooth inclusion lesson with 3 power moves. It can often feel pretty complex, especially when you don't have time to plan with your team, when you are spread thin across grade levels, or when you're working in a school where the inclusion model can look very different in every classroom. So I'm going to talk about how to plan for inclusion in a way that's simple, strategic, and it doesn't require hours of prep or an ideal co-teaching partnership. We're not going to be talking about creating separate lessons for every student or printing 40 differentiated worksheets before lunchtime. Today, I'm breaking it down into 3 practical moves that you can use to plan a smooth inclusion lesson, even if it's at the last minute, even if you're walking in blind, even if you're the only one who seems to care about making this work. Let's jump in. Strategy number 1 is to pick your non-negotiable. The number 1 mistake I had made early on when planning inclusion lessons, trying to do everything. I would think, okay, I'll scaffold this, adapt that, modify this piece, create a visual, pre-teach the vocab, and guess what? I was burning out fast, and my students still didn't get what they needed because I wasn't focused. So here's what I would suggest. Pick that one thing. Ask yourself, if this student only walks away with one thing from this lesson, what should it be? What is the core idea, the big power win for today? For example, it might be using a sentence frame to respond during a discussion, writing one complete sentence with support, identifying a main idea with visuals, participating with a peer group. So let me give you a real example. If the Gen Ed lesson is about identifying the theme of a story, but I know that my student is still working on character traits, I might say, okay, today, I want them to identify one character trait using visual support. That is my one thing. And everything else is a bonus. When you give yourself permission to focus on one thing in the inclusion setting, it's going to remove the pressure to be all things to all students. It's going to help you measure progress more clearly, and it gives your students a real shot at success. And a bonus tip, share this with the student. Let them know, here's your goal today. And if we hit this, we're good. That clarity can build confidence and focus, especially for students who also get overwhelmed in inclusion settings. Here's your power strategy number 2. Preload the supports. So move 2 is preloading the support, which is just a fancy way of saying, give your students a head start. Preloading doesn't require a special prep period or a separate mini lesson. It can be as simple as watching a 90-second video preview during morning work, reviewing a visual during transition time, practicing a related task during independent work. You are planting the seed before the lesson begins. I like to do this by building it right into our independent work system. If I know the Gen Ed lesson is going to include vocabulary like photosynthesis, I might choose a task box that shows plant parts or sequencing plant growth. That way, the student's going to walk into that science inclusion lesson with a frame of reference. If you're preloading, your student is more likely to access the lesson when it feels familiar, and you're more likely to feel calm because you're not having to explain everything on the fly. Even a quick chat in the hallway, hey, remember when we talked about this morning? It can be enough to create that connection. So here's a huge mindset shift. Preloading is not cheating or giving the answers. It's smart support. It doesn't take away from the learning, it enhances it. Okay, strategy number 3 might be a little unexpected. Strategy 3 is to plan your exit. Nobody really talks about this. I don't mean like you're actually exiting, ditching the room. I mean having a plan when things go sideways, because sometimes they will. Inclusion is messy. Schedules change, lessons go long, sometimes someone forgets you're even coming. So instead of white knuckling it through a disaster, just have a calm plan B. This might look like a quick visual checklist that helps your student quietly leave and reset. It might be a familiar task box or a book that students can do separately at their table. It might be a visual card that says, I need a break. They don't have to verbalize it in front of everyone. One of my favorite exit strategies is just to have a backup bin, a labeled container with 1 or 2 comforting tasks, a book my students love, and a visual that reminds them what to do next. It's not a punishment, it's just getting reset. When you plan your exit in advance, you can avoid acting out of any type of emotion. You're going to protect your students' dignity, and you're going to save your own energy for the next moment. And bonus, if you are working with support staff, including co-teachers, you can share this plan. That way everyone's on the same page and no one is scrambling when things get off task. I bet these 3 steps were not what you were thinking of when I was talking about planning for inclusion. But here's what I want you to take away from today's episode. Inclusion doesn't have to be overwhelming. You don't need that detailed lesson plan or 47 accommodations in place. You just need a thoughtful, flexible framework. You can plan for inclusion using 3 moves. Number 1, pick your non-negotiable. What was the one thing your student needed to walk away with? Number 2, preload the support. Give your students a head start using tools you already have. And number 3, plan your exit. Know what to do if things do not go as planned. That's it. Keep it simple, keep it focused, and remember this work matters. You are the bridge between kind of included and actually supported. And I am cheering you on every step of the way. If today's episode gave you a new idea or reminded you of something you already do, please let me know. Send me a DM, leave a podcast review, or share this episode with a teammate. And as always, if you are looking for independent work resources that support the skills you're building in inclusion, please check out the Independent Work Club. It includes the TaskBox Dollar Club. It is all going to be linked in the show notes. I appreciate you listening each and every week, and I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.